Good evening, welcome to the September 12th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. Before we start, please silence your electronic devices. First up, vote minutes of August 1.
I was not here.
Sorry,
I was not here.
anybody have any?
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes. I found them to be substantially accurate. I would move acceptance.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
One abstention.
Minutes, August 22nd. Anybody have anything on those? I did not review them.
I did not.
I read them again, Mr. Chairman. I found one item that I could bring to Susan's attention, an incomplete conversation. Other than that, I would move acceptance of them.
Second.
As amended, okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Okay.
Steve, do you have your corrections written down?
I do.
Yeah, if you-
Oh, I don't have it right here. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. If you want to just bring them down, send them to us. when
Right,
you
it was
can.
just a speaker spoke and then went to the next.
Okay, if you want to
Sure
just
there was a
paraphrase,
response.
like, send it to us in an email, we can do that.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
will do that immediately.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
We have a request for continuance under a notice of intent. Michael and Cynthia George, 108 Gansett Road, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to construct and maintain proposed terraces, stone stairways, install dry wells, a fire pit, retaining walls, and all associated utilities, clearing, grading, and landscaping. The request is to continue this hearing until,
September 26th,
At the
Mr.
request of the
Chairman.
applicant, we'll continue this to September 26th.
second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. So moved. Just so everybody knows, the 300 Committee Land Trust, 0 Gifford Street, map 3809002002C, Falmouth, Mass., for permission to replace the boardwalk in the existing footprint and install an educational exhibit panel and associated clearing. That request is for continuance until the 19th.
The 19th. That was their original request, and I might have just misspoke at the hearing, so.
I make a motion to continue it till 9/19.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, request for determination of applicability. For those of you that don't know, you actually want to hear a negative determination. First up, Peter, if I slaughter your name, I'm really sorry. Anybody here? Renton, 44 Deer Run Lane, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to pump and remove existing septic system and upgrade to a new Title V septic system.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the staff is recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? So moved. Next up, Colonial Gas Company, care of Andrew Shelby, 4 Whitmore Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to extend the existing gas main within Whitmore Avenue, approximately 50 linear feet west, to provide connection to number 4 Whitmore Avenue. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, so moved. Next, Peter Bennett, 346 Quistit Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to clear and maintain a 4-foot path within an existing 6-foot pedestrian and beach easement. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -2 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Next, Herbert and Cynthia Landsman, number 4, Circle Drive, Falmouth, Mass. for permission to rebuild the porch and build a 180 square foot addition above the existing structure. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are recommending a -6 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
And a -6 is?
Protection Act doesn't apply, but the bylaw does.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so basically, they're building a small addition above an existing garage. That addition falls within that 25-foot offset
Mhm.
to the Falmouth V zone, and that's the reason.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anyone? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, so moved. Request for hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. First up, Leon and Deborah Gove, 18 Maker Lane, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a second-story addition, enclosed access stairs, upgrade to a Title V denitrifying septic system, and all associated excavating, landscaping, and utilities.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Martin here on behalf of the Groves, who are here with us also. Looking at the plan, we're proposing a second floor addition at the most landward portion of the house. It's that rectangle. No increase in impervious area there. The house presently has dry wells, so we anticipate that they'll continue to handle any roof runoff. Since the time I filed the notice of intent, the plan has been scaled back, so I'm going to request that we withdraw our request for the outside stairs and footing. Beyond that, we propose to upgrade the septic system, excuse me, in the area to the front of the lot that's most remote from the resource area. It's presently used as gravel parking. It's taking variances from the Board of Health from setback to reduce the setback from 10 feet to 5 feet to further increase that separation from resource areas. Outlined in the notice of intent, all excavated materials will be loaded immediately and hauled off-site. There's no room on site and no reason to store materials on site. And with that, I'll answer questions.
Thank you.
You're withdrawing the request for the stairs, Dave?
Please, the
Okay.
enclosed stairs and footing, associated footing.
Okay, can you do me a favor and just send me a quick email on that so I can put it in the file?
Certainly, and I'll bring you another
A revised plan and an email, yeah, and a quick email,
happy to-
or a letter, however you want to do it.
Sure,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All set? Courtney?
No questions.
Kevin?
No questions.
All right.
The soil layer, the denitrifying system?
Sandy.
All right, that's what it is. Is that in the information in here?
It is not.
The Board of Health has approved it?
No, they have not. We cannot disable the home at this time by destroying the parking area, and the water service goes through there, so as part of the upgrade, we're going to be relocating and sleeving the water service. We have documentation from the previous install of the old Title V system, which indicates Stan. I've designed a system to the right of this property and one across the street, so
Okay.
have
No,
complete
look like a good
confidence.
project, that's all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Peter?
Looks like a good project. No further questions?
Steve?
No more questions, thank you.
You adding any buildings?
No, currently it's 3, proposed 3.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more comments from the board? Comments from the public? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, take under advisement. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? And so moved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one quick announcement? I'm sorry, since I see we have 5 of the engineers we usually work with here. This big TV, you'll be getting an email from us when it goes live, and I'm not quite sure when it's going to happen. You'll be able to bring your plans in on a USB stick, and we can broadcast them on the TV. Okay?
Will they come into the PDF?
Yeah, I'll send an email out, just letting everybody know, so. I know the planning board does that, correct, already, so.
Technology marches.
You don't even like that thing. Okay, that's it, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Next up, Charles Crane and Wendy Brewer, 26 Juniper Point Road, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to construct and maintain additions and terrace modifications to the existing house. Install a retaining wall and steps and all associated clearing, excavating, grading, drainage, utility installation, and landscaping.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos, representing the applicant.
Thank you. Here, Paul.
Again, Tim Santos from Homes and McGrath, representing the applicant. Property is located at 26 Juniper Point Road in Woods Hole. It's currently developing an existing single-family home. The resource area is on or within 100 feet of the property. The pond, associated inland bank, bordering vegetated wetland, coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Some of you might be familiar with this property. Back in 2012, the board issued an order of conditions in order to upgrade the septic system, remove the greenhouse, and construct additions and terraces similar to what's shown on this plan. The septic system was installed and the greenhouse was removed, but during the time between 2012 and the current date, the property has been divided, and number 39, which is the big house up on the hill, has been sold. In order to sell that house, we had to obtain compliance on this property, therefore the additions were unable to be constructed, so we're back here tonight looking to construct those additions. The original plan and a copy of the order as well as the compliance are filed in your package at the end. So we have, in addition to the east and west of the house, as well as the south, proposed terraces, retaining wall and steps. The greenhouse was removed, and we are proposing 240 square feet of mitigation plantings, and within these calculations includes the removal of that greenhouse that was formally approved. All roof runoff will go to dry wells, and if the board has any questions, we'll be more than happy to address them. There is no increase in flow, there's no increase in flow.
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Steve?
No, although I admit to being confused about the site, I have no questions about the development.
Peter?
Could you review again the history of the site?
Sure. So as you come in on Juniper, 26 is the small house that we're here for tonight. If you go further in, there's a house up on the hill, that's number 39. Okay, sometime between 2012 and the present date, the property was subdivided into 3 lots. So 26 stands on its own, 39 stands on its own, and the vacant lot that's 35 that was here last week before you, a few weeks ago, for the other brother, Mr. Crane, that's a vacant lot that they're proposing to build a house on. So those 3 lots are now separate. When this order was originally issued for number 26 to construct the additions, it was one property. In order to sell number 39, they needed to obtain compliance on the entire property, which then in turn would not allow number 26 to construct the additions, because that order of condition has been closed. So we're back here tonight,
Okay,
just looking for permission to construct those additions.
so the prior order of conditions wasn't fulfilled, or you are saying that you
Well,
want to
I guess it was fulfilled, but the additions weren't constructed. And part of the previous approval was a credit for the removal of the greenhouse. So what we're asking for is that greenhouse that was removed to count towards the increase in structure, because basically the greenhouse was removed and that area was going towards the additions on the main house. So we're looking for that same, that same credit that was previously granted.
Jen, do you have a comment on the various properties, and what's your take?
I think this one is fine. They didn't build the additions before the terraces, but they did remove the greenhouse, and that was part of the original order. So I don't really have too many concerns with this, Peter.
Okay.
If the main house didn't sell, that order was still valid, and he'd be constructing those additions
Okay.
without coming before you, just if that helps you.
I'm all set.
I just had,
Changed it a bit.
yeah, I just had one question. Orders are only good for 3 years, did that get an
That was,
extension?
it was part of the Federal
That-
Extension Act,
Oh.
When was it issued, Tim?
2012,
What year, month?
December, so it was good through December of 18.
So they're just under the wire.
Permit
Okay.
Extension Act was from August '08 until August 2012, not December 2012. It had to be in effect from August of 2008 to August of 2012. It
It's a
doesn't
moot
really
point.
matter, it's a
It's
moot
kind of a
point.
moot
It's-
point.
Yeah.
I just wanted clarification, because it really wouldn't even become an open order, but that's fine, it is what it is. The existing leach field,
Correct.
is that really where it is?
That's where it is.
Okay, so it's only 13 feet off that addition, is that a slab?
That's a slab, correct.
Okay, that's all I want to know. And that's it, thank you.
No real questions, other than I happened to talk to someone on the site, and I left just as confused as to which was part of this lot and which was part of another lot as I was when I got there. That's all.
Courtney,
No questions.
you said that septic was upgraded how long ago?
It was installed in 2013, I believe.
No additional bedrooms?
No addition, no increase in flow.
Correct. All right, it's pleasure.
I make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more comments from the board? Comments from the public? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, take under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? So be it.
Thank you
Tim.
for your
Thanks.
time.
Those are the dates right there.
For the other two?
Permit Extension Act.
Oh, all right, thank you. I
Yeah,
mean-
it's August 15th, '08 to August 15th, 2012.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Next one, Michael and Cynthia George has been continued. Next, Bernard and Janet Azarkoff, lots 131 and 132, Coonamessett Circle, Falmouth, Mass. Map 17-01-00900132, map 17-01-009178, for permission to restore a previously altered resource area buffer that was altered without permission.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Brian Wall, I represent Mr. and Mrs. Azarkoff, and tonight with me are Mike Porcello with Falmouth Engineering and Angela from Genix Studio. Briefly, Mr. and Mrs. Azarkoff live at 99 Coonamessett Circle. They have a landscape contractor who does maintenance work for them on a regular basis. About a year ago, when the crew was there, the supervisor of the crew suggested to Mr. Azarkoff that the crew could do some pruning on the bank. And Mr. Azarkoff said, "Is that okay? It's close to the pond." And the supervisor, I'm told, said, yes, it's fine. In fact, we actually did some similar work several properties down. So Mr. Azarkoff said, okay, that's fine. Why don't you go ahead and do the work? Later, Mr. and Mrs. Azarkoff found out that the work was actually on the property belonging to the homeowners association. And the work came to the attention of the homeowners association. And the association approached Mr. and Mr. Azarkoff and said, A, the work was on our land, and B, we believe that it required a permit from the Conservation Commission, and we would like you to address this and make it right. And so Mr. Azarkoff hired me to represent him, and we in turn hired Falmouth Engineering to prepare the appropriate plan, and we hired Genex Studio to prepare a restoration plan. And when we had all of that work together, we actually asked her and met with Ms. McKay to tell her what the plan was going to be. She gave some, I don't want to put words in Jen's mouth, but she gave indications that what was proposed would work. She wanted to check the file to make sure there weren't any other open permits or anything like that, and now your files are stored at a separate location. So we ended the meeting, and Jen got back to me a few weeks later and said that there were no other files or problems. And so we filed this notice of intent that's before you. And I think it's primarily about a restoration plan, so if I may, I'd yield the podium and have Angela describe what was done and what we're proposing to do to restore it.
Hi, I'm Angela Tanner here with Genex Studio, and the area on the plan that's hatched is the area that was trimmed. There were shrubs, taller shrubs, and seedling species as far as we can tell. It didn't look like there were any large trees that were removed and no roots removed. For the most part, the understory vegetation and the ground covers are intact. There are a few areas that are sparsely vegetated with ground cover. This darker hatched area right here, that could potentially lead to erosion. And there are a few areas where there are some ornamental shrubs and some invasive species that we'd like to remove. In general, most of the species in this area are native. It would just be a minimal amount of removal. But what we're proposing to replant is in this hatched area where there's potential erosion, we would seed it with native grasses, and we would plant with low bush blueberry where we're removing species. And we're also proposing to add 6 deciduous native trees. And I think that pretty much sums up. Are there any questions about the planting?
I don't have any questions about the planting. Thank you, Angela. I do have a question for Brian, I guess. I remember meeting with you, Brian. Can you kind of give us a status on the area that's existing mulch and everything like that that's to remain that for that other encroachment into the association property?
So when you walk out at the site, let me back up. This is a cluster subdivision, so the way that it was subdivided was there are lots of house lots and there are lots of common area that's remained open space. And so if you were to be at the Azarkoff's property, you would not even realize there was a property line there because there's no indication that that's association property. And over the years, they extended beyond the property line. The association is well aware of that and has no problem with that.
Do you know when that area was cleared though?
Yeah, I talked to Mr. and Mrs. Azarkoff about that,
Yeah.
and they did provide me some photos. I didn't frankly think it would be an issue, but back in the
I'm
80s,
just kind of curious.
it's been there since the mid-1980s.
Okay.
In fact, Mr. Azarkoff gave me some photos of some grandkids that are now quite older sitting on the bench.
Okay, no, thank you. I couldn't remember if we had discussed it when we met.
You had brought it up, and then I
Yes,
talked to
okay.
Mr.
That's
Azarkoff
fine.
about that.
Okay, thank you. No questions, Mr. Chairman. Or further comments.
The only question I had, actually, Jen, if they're taking out non-native, I guess, I don't know what species were out there, because there, a lot of them are already gone. What are they, you're fine with low bush blueberry? Nothing more?
I mean, with the
substantive?
freshwater
Grasses?
pond system,
Okay.
I'm fine with that. Angela, in the area that you're removing the invasives, you can come up.
It just says it's gonna be grasses, I think.
Yeah, what, can you kind of give us a percentage of invasives out there?
I don't
Yeah,
have a
little
percent,
dot
it's
area.
very minimal invasives. We just wanted permission to be able to do it while we're doing the rest of the
Yeah.
work. If there's a few honeysuckle plants in there basically, but it's not anything major. You probably wouldn't even notice it, but we just wanted to make sure we could treat them.
I'm fine with that, Mark.
Okay. Nope, that's all.
Questions?
And I'll defer to Jen on this. Are low bush blueberries, which only grow about that high, really an appropriate buffer?
I mean, it's a,
I mean, you know, I understand
It's a
the
woodland
folks
plant.
want a view, and that's okay, but, you know,
I mean, if the board wants something different, they could plant, plethora
Either
or
summer sweet,
viburnum.
yeah, a couple clumps of.
Yeah,
Just,
I mean, if the board's uncomfortable with all the little bush blueberry, then you can
you
use
know,
it.
I mean, I just think maybe there needs to be some more
Okay,
variety.
well, I mean, that's
More
up to the
some height
board.
and
Yeah.
that stuff.
I mean, it's just a small patch, but if the board wanted to see a few other, taller species in there, it's your prerogative.
I can respond to that.
Sure.
One, we are planting 6 deciduous trees. And our thought is that for the most part, the understory and the ground covers are very intact on this slope. We're just supplementing it and trying to establish a little bit more of a thick and healthy erosion control.
So you are planting trees in there?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay, no other questions?
I'm just making certain that the property owner did sign off.
They did, Peter.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's it.
Steve?
Okay, I have to say, of the parcels that we've seen that were disturbed by owners, this was the gentlest that I've seen in some time. I was, assuming everyone's okay with the large mulch area, you have no problem with any of that? And there's some confusion about where the actual lot lines are, which is irrelevant, but,
Well, there's no confusion.
well, you have it marked in the field,
Yeah,
and that's what caused the confusion. If you hadn't marked it in the field, I would have been fine.
Don't listen to that.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's land court, the property lines are set. It's just as, if you went out there, you would, it's common land when they subdivided it. I'm sure they had to meet certain open space requirements. But if Mr. Azakoff, it's kind of like their yard. And like I said, the association's aware of the bench and the alterations they're
Right.
fine.
But it looks like the two ownership lots meet at a
Yeah.
common point without any, they're just assumed there's a common area.
Correct.
Okay, that's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen, I know you questioned the mulch, and now Peter's questioning the mulch, and I kind of was thinking about the mulch. It's only, 50, 60 feet off the top of that pond, and we all know how mulch gets maintained. It gets usually rounded up,
That mulch isn't going anywhere.
or, so I don't know, maybe you could just put more of the ground cover or your grasses and reduce that mulch area, or at least back, I don't know. Maybe nobody else really cares, but mulch is usually, the bearberry is beautiful.
Mhm.
It'd be nice to see the bearberry just continue and stop that mulch scene.
I agree. Condition that, no?
Yeah, we can condition it.
What we want. All right. What's your pleasure?
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, unanimous. So moved. Thank you
Did I
very
get the
much.
green card? This is not my job description. I want this.
Yeah, well,
We need a form from you.
So we have one more.
next up, Thomas Dimitrick, 53 Madeline Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove the licensed float and install a new pile-supported pier and pile-supported boat lift. Mr. Borselli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant. Thomas Dimitrick is before you tonight in hopes of gaining permission to build a fixed pier structure to replace a previously approved and licensed floating dock at his property. The property is at 53 Madeline Road. There's an existing single-family dwelling, typical landscaping yard. The waterfront is Eel Pond, so there's land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There's a very small strip of salt marsh. The bulkhead itself meets the definition of a coastal bank because it's steeper than 10-to-1. Along the waterfront, the bulkhead, the existing float that Mr. Dimitrick currently uses to tie his boat, and the riprap, which is over here, and it's partially covered by vegetation, so it's difficult to see. They're all licensed under license number 8336. In addition, when Mr. Dimitrick went through the process to license those, the first thing he had to do was get some recognition from the Conservation Commission. So in the notice of intent application, as an attachment, there's a copy of an RDA that was issued as a negative determination in 1999, May 5th, 1999. I was actually looking to see if Courtney or Maury's signature was on it, but I don't see it. So we believe that the current structures on the site have good standing, and the proposal will improve the conditions. How will we improve the conditions? The existing float, which is in this location, and it's shown as a rectangle parallel to the bulkhead, is a float. And it's also close to the bulkhead. The water depth is less than 2 feet. So on some tides, I'm sure the buoyancy touches the bottom. The boat, when it's berthed to the float, is in shallower water than you would typically expect for a brand new application. So we feel as though changing the configuration would improve things. Mr. Dimitrick would like to change things as well because he does have trouble at some tides gaining access to the float at low tides. So the proposal is to abandon the float but continue to gain access from the bulkhead to a fixed pier that would have on one side a hoist lift. I'm familiar with the lifts, where the boat can float into a cradle and be hoisted out of the water to protect the bottom, and also to secure it when he's not on the property from any damage during any storms or wave action. But when he's actively at the property, he would keep the boat on this side of the pier. The water depth is adequate for the provisions of FWR 10.18. All the provisions for new docks, in my opinion, have been met. We show a mooring field. In the narrative for the notice of intent, I did make a mistake. in my description of, or my justification for not needing to perform a shellfish survey. In my narrative, I said that because the float was licensed and it was an existing condition, that there was no need to do a shellfish survey. I think that was really an error. I think that may be a justification if you weren't changing the configuration or the size, but since we're making a newer, different configuration, longer pier out into deeper water, which is better, you could request a shellfish survey. That being said, though, I know from local knowledge and conversations with neighbors, one of which is Mr. Perry, John Perry next door, who's a commercial shell fisherman, that this area of Eel Pond is not healthy and does not have shellfish in significant densities. But to supplement that more and to verify that, I met with Chuck Martinson from the Department of Natural Resources, and he commented on the project. And he submitted a letter to you, it's in the file, and it's a short letter, I'll just read it. Thank you for the opportunity to review the proposal. On August 30th, I visited the proposed location. I conducted 4 samples in the proposed area using a cog rake lined with a 6mm mesh. No shellfish or shell debris were discovered. The sediment observations in this area included soft, anoxic, mostly organic material. I also had an opportunity to speak with John Perry, who was a commercial fisherman and neighbor of the project. This conversation revealed my observations were consistent with Mr. Perry's experience, and he said he had no further comments. We also filed with the Division of Marine Fisheries as a requirement. We filed a notice of intent, and they commented by email saying that they reviewed the application. Based on the scope of the work as currently proposed, DMF has no recommendations for sequencing, timing, or methods that would avoid or minimize impacts at this time. So we're fairly confident that a shellfish survey would really not reveal anything that would be of value to you, and it would be a significant added expense to the applicant. So we're hoping that you wouldn't require a shellfish survey. Just to finish up, the pier itself is common and typical to what you've seen in the past. It's supported by 10-inch diameter pilings. It's 4 foot wide. It's going to be retrofitted with through-flow decking. I show a seasonal water and electric service leading to the house. The harbor master also commented and had no recommendations. I think that pretty much sums it up, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mike, thank you for correcting the record in regards to the narrative. My only question or comment or the comment would be, so when the board issues permits for new docks, they usually always only allow one boat to be tied at any one time to the dock. What's your justification for requesting 2? And I know that you're saying it's getting it out of water, but to come in and around that lift, right where you have your 11-foot kind of width marked out, does that say 1.3 feet of water? Yeah, right there?
Sure, it's 1.3 reference
Yeah.
to Nemo water, but
So if you're coming in and around, I mean, he obviously uses the float now, correct?
yes,
So it only puts one float on that, one boat on that existing float.
yes,
So now you're asking for the ability to dock or more 2 boats.
No, we're not asking for that. In fact, he only has one boat. And-
But you're showing a space for 2 vessels.
Yes, but we would absolutely accept a condition that only one boat could be docked at this facility. So the way that this works, if you can envision it, is the boat would come into the cradle like this and be oriented like this. So the stern of the boat
Okay.
would be, and the only purpose for the lift is to protect the boat from bottom scum, for lack of a better word.
No, I get it, I know what it's like up there.
And to keep it out of the water when he's not here. He's a weekend warrior. He's not here all the time. But when he is here, the boat would be tied as it would be routinely tied to a pier up and down Eel Pond. But absolutely one boat, no plans for any other boats.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Peter?
What's the square footage of the existing dock versus the proposed dock? Is there an increase in the square footage?
Yes, I can tell you that the elevated pier is larger in square footage than the floating dock. The floating dock is approximately half the size of the elevated pier, but the floating dock is also in the substrate bottoming out at low tide and has the potential to cause impacts to the bottom. So it is larger, but the provisions of your regulation limit the size of a T or L to 100 square feet. And we meet that standard.
And you are not proposing any mitigation for the increased size of the dock?
No, we don't, if you're making reference, if I could, Mr. Chairman, if you're making reference to mitigation as it relates to like FWR 10.18 for increases in impervious surface, no, I've never done that on any dock.
Okay, no further questions?
Steve? You're moving the water and sewer lines, the water and electric lines from their existing location, or is that a dead location? There's an existing box, but.
We want to upgrade it to, it's not really up to standards, and we know that if we're going to go through the process of building a new pier, we'd like to have a new water and electric to replace the old substandard one. So there would be some minor trenching, so we wanted to show where they would be on the site.
Okay, yeah, the question was about the need for the trenching, but I can understand the one. It's a pretty good sized boat, and the field, that water depth looks much more suitable for.
I think the boat is approximately 22 to 23 feet in length.
It's in the driveway, it's at least, well, could be, yeah. So the mooring field extends slightly over the property line. I don't know whether that's an issue, but I guess not.
Well, what the regulation says, and Mr. Demichik and Mr. Perry are neighbors, not, friendly neighbors. Your regulations require a minimum of a 10-foot separation from the structure, the dock, to the property line.
Right.
In fact, Chapter 91, if we were to succeed and get a favorable order of conditions, Chapter 91 has a provision or a policy where they prefer 25 feet from a property line where feasible. And if it's not feasible, they like to receive a letter from the neighbor stating that he has no objection, which we're confident we can get since they're friendly neighbors. But we would need to get that to be able to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
You said that the harbor master didn't have any comment, but in here it says.
He had no recommendations.
Oh, okay. But I know navigation is now, and that will probably come up, with the selectman or somebody?
Mhm.
But the structure extends into the canal, thereby blocking approximately 30 feet of the area between the subject property and the salt marsh. vessel traffic in this area is limited in scope due to location in shallow water. So my concern is with this being here, are people going to navigate this? Are they gonna go closer to that salt marsh and peat shelf to get away from the dock? So that is a concern. The other question I had, Mike, on that support, whatever there is, a boat lift, the two lines that go out, are those the timbers that it comes up and lifts up
With
on?
the cradle.
The cradle? All right, so it's only 10 feet from the salt marsh to the piling, the 10-inch timber piling. How is he gonna swing that boat into there?
I will show you.
Well, he doesn't show it that way, but he's not showing it that way. You were showing it that the stern of the boat, or however he wants the back end, bow or stern, is where number 11 foot says they're coming in to the lift that way.
I'll actually draw the boat. If you
Draw driving in.
Draw driving in. Here it is, I'm driving it in, and I'm gonna dock it, I'm gonna sit it in the
It's
cradle.
deceiving the way it's,
Yeah.
the way the.
So it
That's
goes-
not how the drawing.
It's,
Right.
yeah, the opening, it looks like you would drive in the opening by the salt.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, absolutely not. This is a cradle that lowers in the water, so the boat can float.
Right, I've seen
But
them.
that's what
I've
you're
down in
seeing.
Florida, and that's why the cradles in Florida, they go down like this, the boat drives in,
Yes,
the arms go like that, and they lift up.
that's
So this one's
exactly.
going across this way?
Yes, these two supports are supported by two pilings here, and there's a hoisting mechanism, and the boat sits in the cradle like this and gets lifted up.
Well, that would make sense, but that's not how it looks like it's drawn. I mean, that's not how, and I don't see any picture of, you have nothing drawn for the lift, only the dock.
I can provide you with the catalog, got it if you like, if I can get it from the owner, I've seen it. But that's the intent, as I just illustrated with my plan.
Okay,
So
so,
is there any way you could draw like a cross-section on a plan or something like that?
I
Or
could do
provide, not even on the plan, but maybe email me kind of a document on your letterhead that kind of
Absolutely,
sketches it out?
absolutely. I can share if I can find it, but here it is. I'm sure I can get another copy of this, or I'll come get a copy if I need to. I mean, it's a Xerox of a black and white, but here it is. You can have that for the record.
thank you.
Did you
Okay,
say you had a letter from Chuck also?
There is a letter from
there is a
Chuck.
letter. All right, so now it makes more sense. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Then the next question I had was, with the shellfish survey, I think we'll probably have to discuss, I mean,
You guys can deliver it on that. You have the ability to require a shellfish survey. It is a larger structure.
well, I do think it's an improvement having the
It is.
flow-through grading, getting the float off the bottom. My concern, as always, we can condition anything in the world. Following those, we know what happens, and this is basically, to me, having two boats here. Whether it's him or down the future, we go to sites, Mike, and when we go to a site for, a hearing, you look to the left and you look to the right, and there's usually a violation on both sides. You look across, and there's a violation across. And they're all orders that we condition, and there are many marinas that we're supposed to have one boat, or it's a boat that was only supposed to have a kayak. This is just what we would call an attractive nuisance for us, because this is just saying, hey buddy, you know what, I got my lift, I'm not gonna be in town this week, I'll leave my boat on the mooring field, you can use the lift or vice versa. So more the intensity of use of it being this little teeny float versus now it's basically a two-boat operation. It has the capability, so I'm gonna say we can condition it. Knowing men in boats, that is not gonna happen.
Well,
What do you mean, people in boats?
People in boats. And I'm not comfortable conditioning that a boat, it can only have one boat. Because we can't police it, you'll never know, and 2 or 3 years down the road, it's just not possible to condition certain things.
Can I speak to that, Mr. Chairman? I'm not gonna get confrontational, I'm gonna get philosophical about it a little bit. So, I know from my conversations that the applicant who owns the property now has no intention of having more than one boat, in my knowledge. And I can't speak to successors to Mr. Dimitrick. That being said, and I'm only being devil's advocate, I'm not trying to be confrontational at all. What would be the concern with two boats at this position? Knowing what we know about the water, the substrate quality and the condition of the bottom, even though I'm telling you there's no plan for two boats, but what if there were two boats? I have been before you and said that my client has two boats and wants to continue to maintain two boats. I didn't say that in this case. I don't see the negative impact to having two boats here. If it were an area where we had environmental issues to consider, like shellfish, where we were nearby the shellfish, but we met your standard for separation from the shellfish, maybe two boats isn't a good idea, but I don't see a regulation or a reason that could limit him to two
Well,
boats.
we don't know about the shellfish, that's one of the issues. Probably if there was no shellfish issue, I probably won't have a problem with two boats there.
Okay,
We
but
don't know that.
I think we do know about the shellfish because of the testimony of Mr. Martinson, and he actually took some samples. And his knowledge and experience in the channel, as well as Mr. Perry, who is a commercial shellfisherman and does it for a living.
Okay. No, I'm all set.
I mean, I would, I don't want to get into it either.
I don't either.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Speaking of the float, is that disappearing as part of this?
Absolutely. It's in conflict and there's no need for it. It'll be removed and it's probably brought to a landfill. It's not in the best of condition.
So you want two boats?
No, I don't want two boats. I don't want two boats.
Well, then why are you asking for two boats?
I didn't ask you to
Right.
vote.
Move on.
So what I'm concerned about is two boats become three because you have a boat in the middle of the lift up in the air and we have other two boats down here and you see what I mean, in the mooring
I
area.
really don't, because the most you could ever have here is two boats. We don't want two boats.
Now, the other question I have is, so you take your boat out of the water and it lives on the lift when he's not using it,
Correct.
all year round?
No, no, he may haul it off-site in the off-season.
Well, that's what I want to know. He may or he will?
I would have to ask Mr. Dimitrick, but it's knowing what
In
I
other
know.
words, we need to know what we're permitting. If you're lifting it out temporarily, that's fine. I have a concern about that being stored over the winter in that location.
Courtney, I don't think anybody would store their boat on a lift.
Well,
I'm just saying, but.
no,
okay.
I
get it.
understand
I will
that
tell you
people are
that-
logical, but they aren't always logical.
I will tell you that he has no intention of keeping.
I'm sure he doesn't.
Well, I just think it should be conditioned that way.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
The other thing is, and this has come up before with your cross sections. These are all pressure treated, right?
They're non-CCA treated.
Okay. So there's no problem with galvanized fasteners, is that what you're saying? As opposed to stainless steel?
My experience with, my conversations with Doc, was a hot dip galvanizer appropriate. Of course, stainless steel would be better, but much more expensive.
Well, then, I'd like to see that we specify stainless steel.
And that being.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna prolong their life and that's a better thing.
So what is the environmental impact to not using stainless steel?
I mean, you want the structure to hold together. If it doesn't hold together, it's not environmentally sound. So I'd rather see stainless steel fasteners.
That's a new one for me, with
No,
all due respect.
well,
You have said that before, Courtney.
huh?
I said you have said that before.
Yes, I have.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, if that's going to be a condition of this, then it needs to be a standard condition on all future docks.
That's fine. You know, I don't care whether it's a standard condition. I'm not trying to pick an argument. From what this guy's gonna invest in this project, the cost of stainless steel bolts versus galvanized, in the big picture, is peanuts.
That's fine.
But in the big picture, it's gonna prolong the life of this structure.
That's fine. I've just never had that come up in a conversation.
Well, it has, because I brought it up before.
Okay.
When you, in fact, with you.
What's that?
Other than that, I have no questions.
So
Tonight is cantankerous night, so.
through flow or track space?
If you look in the profile, if you look on the profile, it says through flow. If you look in the
Yep.
cross section, it says
And
tracks.
the cross section says, hence my question.
It's gonna be tracks. My recollection is, Mr. Dimitrick would like it to be tracks decking with the proper spacing. We're not crossing any vegetation. So I can change the profile from through flow to tracks. Mr.
So the through flow is erroneous.
Yes, and the tracks will be 5 quarter by 6 with, I think the requirement's 3/4 inch spacing.
Thank you. All right, what are you thinking?
I know I was liking the through flow.
If you need it to be
Well,
a
what are you gonna do about the
condition.
shellfish survey then?
Now, you can deliberate on that.
Okay.
That's really up to you
Okay,
guys.
then I make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more comments from the board? Comments from the public? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Before you vote, Mr. Chairman, a procedural question about the deliberating on the shellfish survey. So what would happen if the consensus is that you want a shellfish survey? Would you make it a condition that we submit a shellfish survey when the hearing's already been closed, or would it be a denial? Because,
Well, that's a good question. Are we accepting Chuck's opinion, Laura?
And that's up to the board. If you want to make that decision tonight, you can. If you want to deliberate on it, you can. If a shellfish survey is done and it trips a certain threshold, you know, we can condition that, you know, if the shellfish survey comes and trips a certain threshold, then, you know, the project, you know, if it trips the threshold, then the project cannot be constructed. So it really is up to you. I mean, you can condition to require a shellfish survey and then condition
Right, but
the result.
procedurally, would that be more effective with a continuance than closing?
Well, if you're gonna require the shellfish survey and you know you're gonna require one now, then continue it. If you're on the fence and you
I
don't
think that's
know,
effectively your question, right?
yeah.
yeah, I think.
That's
we
up to
made-
you
I
guys.
think we made a strong case as to why we don't need a shellfish survey, so,
I don't think we can really vote on that piece, right? Because that's deliberation.
You can deliberate on that. It's up to you. If you want to require a shellfish survey, if you feel strongly about it because of the lift or the potential issue, I mean,
Well, the
that's
only-
up to you.
The only, the one thing when I read the shellfish warden's narrative of, that it was, it didn't say where he did it, it just said in the area. And usually where, you know, you go out and you have kind of a grid and people go, you know, they do a test area and it's quite systematic and scientific. Just to say you just took a bull rake and you pulled and it came up mud, and we're looking at two much bigger areas, the mooring field and the lift area. They're both, you know, areas of shellfishing. If there is shellfish, there would be an impact. That was the only thing, because if he had explained, when you read Chuck's note, I don't know if everybody, I didn't get mine, I got one in the file. But it says, I had the opportunity to review the proposal. I visited the proposed location, conducted 4 samples in the proposed area. Well, first of all, he says area, it should be plural areas, because.
Right, but he's, and I can't speak for Chuck,
Yeah.
just for the record, but,
Okay.
you know, his implication is that he was reviewing this specific proposal. So, I mean, I think it's fair to assume he went to this site.
Oh, I'm saying he did go to the site.
And, you know,
Did him out in the mooring,
Yeah.
the mooring field and the lift area.
Mhm.
Okay.
I can tell you what, the boat was tied to the float and he reached out he reached out from the boat, which is on the float, so he was reaching over the side, dead center on where this pier was, and he took 4 samples right here. As far
Right,
as-
so where did he do it where the lift is?
Well, he reached as far as he could from the boat, you know, it was tied to the dock.
So we're at 3 feet of water. And he's stood on the edge of the float, and you're saying that out in that mooring field, he could reach 15 feet.
Yeah, he had a long bull rig. I watched him. I was with him. He reached out like from me to Mr. Patton with his bull rig, or halfway between me and Mr. Patton. It was low tide, and he rigged from the gunnel of the boat as far as he could reach. And Chuck's a pretty
So
big guy.
what's the water at low tide?
It was like 3 feet, 2.5 feet,
Okay.
3 feet where he was.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
a.
I'm just, I mean, I know what a
8-foot
bull
rig.
rig looks like, and
Yeah.
I know the length of the handle, and I know 3 feet of water, and I look at the geometry of it, and I'm saying he did not get out to that lift, I can tell you right now.
Well, if
I don't
the
know how
boat-
big his
if-
rig was.
Well, if the boat is here and the boat has a beam of about
I'm
8
saying
feet.
lift.
Yeah, I could, no, he didn't reach over there, but I mean, it's.
That was the point I was making.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
saying in the mooring field, possibly he could have got halfway, maybe, but,
That's what I'm saying.
but the area that will have the impact is where the stern of the boat is, which is where the engine is, which is usually why we were, I'm not gonna, I just was concerned that the depth of, or the extent of the shellfish survey is not what we're usually used to, that's all.
Right, so that begs the question, is that a procedural issue that, you know, we're gonna set a precedent? You know?
That's what I'm worried about, that if somebody goes out and digs 4 little test things and say no shellfish, and then the next thing we know, everybody's gonna have 4 little test holes.
Well, we also got a comment from the DMF, and they have mapping and knowledge of the area, and I guess the final thing I'd like to say, and what would happen if we discovered shellfish? As it is now, there's a boat that ties there, that motors through there.
You might not get the lift, if they're all underneath the lift, no. Where the boat's moored, it's an improvement, because it's not grounding out.
I just don't get the logic of I mean, the boat is lifted above the shellfish on a lift, so what's the problem with
Well,
it?
boats float over shellfish too, but when the shellfish under boats, we don't allow docks. Because of the impact, that is called turbidity, prop wash, that's the reason that we have that regulation. So,
I feel as though we gave you enough info.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think we're gonna get anywhere tonight. You can, if you feel comfortable, condition a shellfish survey and then make proper conditions that if the shellfish survey, if you require one, trips your threshold, then the dock cannot be constructed, or if it's within, you know, where they have to submit a shellfish mitigation proposal, then that has to be done prior to the construction of the dock. And you guys can deliberate it, or you can argue about it for the next 20 minutes. I don't really care.
I'm gonna close the hearing and take minutes.
Okay.
And then if we deliberate, that's I'm going to make a motion to close the hearing. We discuss this, the shellfish survey and deliberation.
Who made the motion?
And if somebody made my motion before, I'll say continue it and require shellfish survey.
What was that?
There are only 2 ways to go, to close it, deliberate, maybe the shellfish survey will be required or not, and if the threshold will trip. Or maybe more fair to the applicant, continue it, so he can do a shellfish survey, and require a shellfish survey. And then-
I'd move without the shellfish survey.
Okay. Then
And you
I
can
will-
vote against it.
Right, I will close the hearing and take under advisement.
Okay.
When,
Your second?
We're gonna close the hearing. Who's
you
second?
already made that motion a long time ago,
I'll second it for the sake of seconding.
There we go.
seconded it. Okay. So it's closed.
Any more comments?
I don't understand, I just want to clarify that we're not going to deliberate about a shellfish survey.
Yes, we can.
We can in the deliberations, so we're gonna, so
Yeah,
her
we made a
proposal is to close the
motion.
hearing as
We made a motion to
I
close
was
it and
asking
take
the
it under
chair.
advisement. We now discuss it.
I was
If we
asking
vote
the
against
chair.
it, then we can come up with another one.
No.
Mr. Chairman?
Correct.
So the motion on the table is to close the hearing as
But it happens when we
discussed,
submit.
and we can deliberate a necessary shellfish survey or not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What was that, Jamie? You're gonna deliberate? You're gonna deliberate over the survey?
Yes.
That's the way you do it.
All right. Any more comments? Comments from the public? Perfect. All those in favor of closing the hearing, take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So,
One opposition? Still unanimous? Closed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right, continued requests for a hearing under notice of intent.
Nick?
Bradley and Elizabeth Weiner, number 14 Maker Lane, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to pump and abandon the existing septic tank, temporarily remove existing vegetation to allow for the installation of new septic system, installation of new septic tank and pump chamber, installation of a new distribution box and leaching field, restoration of previously existing vegetation in all disturbed areas, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
And the quorum on this is Kevin, Courtney, Jamie, Steve, and Peter.
Thank you.
Mr. Boselli, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. The applicant retained me to get permission to upgrade the septic system at the reference property. We had an initial public hearing. There were some questions and comments from the commission. There was a concern of butter. The westerly abutter had some concerns about the excavation in close proximity to the property line. So we continued the hearing. I visited the site with the prospective contractor who's been recommended for the project, Mr. George Vitello. We walked the site, we investigated things, and we made some revisions to address the concerns of the neighbor. And we made some other changes to the plans as a result of comments. And there was a cover letter submitted and a revised plan. I'll just touch on the revisions. We removed the note that said existing house to be renovated and replaced it with the note existing house. I think Mr. O'Brien picked up on that on the plan originally. We had originally had a plan to renovate the house, and that note carried through. We changed the symbols for some shrubs up at the road by the driveway that looked like a row of trees. They were circles. And we changed that symbol and labeled it as existing shrubs. I think it was Commissioner Bird had a comment about some confusion about the size of pipe, 2-inch or 4-inch. So we revised the notes to make it clear that the pipe from the pump chamber to the distribution box was a 2-inch diameter pipe, not a 4-inch diameter pipe. we revised the layout of the septic system components to change from a single 2-compartment tank to 2 individual tanks that'll be installed side by side, and they will be shifted from the property line from what they were, I believe, at 5 feet to 12 feet. We changed from 1 tank to 2 because of the weight of the combined tank and the hoisting capacity of an excavator. It's impossible to back a truck to this location, so the excavator needs to hoist the tanks into place. So the 2 smaller tanks he can handle, not the one bigger tank. I just mentioned that we shifted the tank and pump chamber away from the common boundary. I also attached on page 2 just the construction methodology, because there was some discussion about the methodology. So on page 2 of the letter goes through the procedure of how they're going to do it, from removal of the mitigation planting to reinstallation or replanting of new mitigation on the route to get to the to do the work for the septic system. So I think that sums it up, and I'm here to answer questions. Done?
No questions.
Courtney?
No questions.
No questions.
Sorry.
Peter?
No questions.
No questions.
No, me either. Thank you for addressing all our issues.
Thank you, yes. I'll make a motion to take this under advisement.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more comments from the board? Comments from the public? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Opposed? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
The next one is opposed.
Next up, Peter and Andret, 27 Sunfish Lane, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise RAZE and rebuild the existing cottage, upgrade the septic system, construct a driveway and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Mr. Chairman, the quorum on this is Peter, Steve, yourself, Kevin, and Courtney. Roy, are you on any of these?
No. But I have a question, Jen. This says in here it says second hearing was 7/18, but there was nothing entered. Is this the third hearing?
It is?
This is the third one.
So nobody, so it just
6/27,
continued again,
7/18.
nobody was here?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
I have it, it was continued to July 18th.
Mhm.
It was originally scheduled for June 27th.
7th, yeah.
Yep.
But it wasn't even open or heard on the 18th of July? Okay.
For the record, my name is Tom Hunter with DSS Design, and actually the procedural history can be found in the first paragraph of the letter I submitted with this. The initial hearing was June 27th, 2018, and it was, at that time, it was mainly continued because we had not received a referral back from the Natural Heritage program. I got the letter the next day. But in the meantime, the owners talked to some contractors, and what I had drawn on there was we had run the driveway up, staying outside jurisdiction for as far as possible. That did go through the highest part of the site. Cost estimates came back more than they liked. So when it came time, and that we learned just prior to the July 18th hearing, so we were working on redesigning the plan, and so that hearing was continued without any new testimony. And that time was continued to tonight. That was the next available hearing. So what we have done, as I explained, we had the design before was running up outside of the A zone. Actually,
anybody want to go back, I could outline some of the site characteristics for any of you. Basically, it's a 100-foot zone A because we have wetland bordering a pond in a zone 2 of a water supply. So this 100-foot zone A is up to here. And then we have a wetland in the back with a 50-foot A and another 50 feet of B zone. So we're talking about this now, I can show you we have the septic system in this location. The only location of the septic is up through here, up in the highest point or down that way. But what we did, both times, we've had to develop the driveway coming out to Sunfish Lane due to access issues across the way the driveway now runs. And so this area of the existing driveway is being closed off with vegetation. And this, actually, if you went up that way, was the old lane sort of coming through. It went all the way through from Jigette Road out to Sunfish Lane. And so we've moved it to this location where more of this driveway is in the zone A than it was before. I have some coverage notes on there. I cut back on the previous plan, this corner, the deck was larger, so I removed, I'm not sure how much, but I removed some deck from that corner that had been squared off in all of this right here. So that got removed, and you look at the mitigation calculations, it added up the existing house and deck and patio and the driveway going out in this direction. And so now I have it compared with the proposed house and deck and the driveway, and other than 9 square feet, they come out the same, and that's based on all of this driveway becoming vegetated in exchange for this driveway, which was there, but it's fully vegetated now. This driveway being developed. This area is labeled to be with shrubs and trees. The utilities for this house and houses further up Sunfish Lane on the west side of the pond come through the site. There's a utility pole at this location right here, and then the wires run across the site to a utility pole right here, and then back out through the woods and then up around the pond. So all of the houses up here depend on these wires staying functional. As part of this project, this pole, we must retain access for the utility trucks to get to this pole. And so this will be grassed, I think, with a native grass meadow mix. It's the best we could do as far as vegetating it, but the trucks have to be able to get to this pole. They'll come in this way and around the house and get up to here. This other pole, there'll have to be a new pole installed in this location that the wires do not run across the addition to the house, which right now they run across where the addition is. So this area of the driveway is what we're counting within the zone A versus the area here that's being revegetated, and the increase in coverage generated by the enlargement of the house is what is balanced in this equation on the side. I can point out that this point here, the closest point of the new driveway, I think it's 47 feet, is further than most of the rest of this. So this driveway is in a better location than the existing driveway, further from the wetland, much further from the pond, less of it within the natural heritage, and and the A zone of the pond. That is, basically, I have so the septic system is going in here, the gravity feed septic system, the tank here, pipe running down the driveway and into this location, more than 100 feet from the wetlands, and then down drainage down the bottom of the hill here for the drainage coming down the driveway. Those are the changes we made. I'll take any questions.
Jen?
What's the purpose of the 4-foot wide path through your mitigation?
Partly for maintenance and partly just, people have paths, it's just so they could have a path if,
Where is the path going?
well, like I said, starting off, just to be able to get through it for maintenance, but I mean, it's not necessarily going anywhere.
We've seen mitigation areas far greater than this, but no paths for maintenance. Okay.
All right.
And no, I don't have any, you said they're not, because you and I had talked about that pole that's
Yes.
requiring the access, they're not gonna move that?
Well, the pole, this pole might be moved also, but it'll be down, if it's moved, it'll be moved toward the pond,
It'll be
so the wires don't cross this
Got
other
it,
property corner.
Yeah, okay, all right. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have a letter from Natural Heritage? Because I haven't seen the file.
It's not the final, you got it?
Maybe I'll look again. I'm not on the form, so I'll spend some more time looking.
I have the original here,
I'll look again. I get nothing or anything?
or I should.
You should have it, if not, you probably missed it when.
Yeah, keep it.
Tom, if we don't have it, can you just shoot me a copy?
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm sure I sent an email somewhere. That's fine, you can go, Mr. Chairman.
Kevin?
Would you, I know you said it, just repeat why it is you're still coming this way for access in wiping out all of those trees?
Which way for access?
I found,
Why is this driveway being developed here?
Yeah.
The access that has been used for some years has just sort of been,
Private property.
it's a private, it's just a dirt road crossing somebody else's land. And they've been using it, but now that this project is coming up, it was determined that the Brundretts would come back out this way. Their address is Sunfish Lane, so to come in this way rather than crossing the other property.
Well, having walked through it, I think the property will be much the better if you clear out half of the brambles in it, but it does seem as though you really have just hit about every tree within your limit of work.
This is fewer trees than the prior plan.
Gordon?
No questions.
Steve? I don't have any questions, thank you.
No question.
Do you have a calculation of how many caliper inches versus new?
I don't have that number. 13 new trees, roughly 26 inches. There's more than that coming out.
Goes for tree for tree, no?
What I had done is putting in trees where, I thought that they would be allowed Obviously didn't put any in here because we have to leave that open. These I put in, not even really knowing, I mean, there's canopy over a lot of this to begin with, so I'm not even sure this is too many. The only other cleared area, or where trees could go, is around this bank. And partly didn't want to get too close to the pole where the wires would be going, without planting more trees than what's already wooded. I don't see how many more can fit in.
I'll move to close the hearing and take it up to revise.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more comments from the board?
It was in the, it was not in that. It was the application.
What was that?
That the natural heritage wasn't in there.
You said you
Just
have the letter?
application.
You have the original?
No,
You found it?
no, I didn't. I only found the application.
Tom?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You okay?
thank you.
It
Tom,
just makes
sorry
it-
about that.
Any comments from the public? Mr. Wall?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I represent the neighbors over here where the dirt driveway is. So my comments pertain to what Mr. O'Brien said and something that my client wants the commission to know. So I represent Jean Duff Still and her mother, Mary. And they live at 30 and 34 Jaggett Road, is that how you said it? They said Jaggett Road. In any event, as Mr. Bunker said, the current access to the property is across a dirt driveway that runs across my client's property. And that has been by permission. There's no legal easement or legal right to cross the property. And as this project was being talked about, and for personal reasons inside my client's family, they wanted the access issue resolved and for the access to be over the legal frontage, which is on Sunfish, and not over their property. And so my clients are actually quite pleased with the project regarding the driveway being planted, and they support the project in its concept, and they believe that it complies with the regulations. What they wanted the commission to know is this access issue is a dispute, and that there is no longer permission being granted. And so how is that relevant to you? Because I know that you don't get into property issues. That has to do with the construction protocol. My client wants to make sure that the commission is aware that all construction needs to come in over Sunfish, and that therefore we would submit and respect the board to maybe make a finding that legal access does not exist across Jaggett Road, and that maybe make a condition that all construction access has to be over Sunfish, and then whatever other conditions you think are appropriate to protect the wetlands, knowing that construction has to come in this way. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Could I just make one point on that? I don't disagree with what you said, but I just agree with you. Often there are conditions that the mitigation planting be done before construction starts, but because of the tightness of the site, we would ask, and this will be closed off, but ask that you can keep it open at least up to this area here, just for some parking or material storage or something up to this point before planting any of the mitigation planting.
Yeah, so you're proposing that the limit of work would be the property line?
The property line or just shy of the property line, yes.
Okay.
Well, the limit of work is, pretty much out there anyway. I'm just saying that not to put the condition that the mitigation planting must be done first. And that sometimes comes up in an order of conditions.
Okay.
Oh, it was gonna be in this one, but okay.
Just so
You
they
just
have
want
that
to,
room.
but use it for staging.
Yes,
Okay, construction staging is fine.
yes.
Steve, did you have something?
No, I was just clarifying the property line.
Any more comments?
Thank you.
Any more comments from the public? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Call for the vote. All those in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None? Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Bunker.
Do we have a form?
Next up, Donald and Nancy Colleran, 11 Foster Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove wood bulkhead wall and replace with 100 linear feet of stone riprap wall. Remove wood ramp and steps and construct stone steps and construct 40 linear feet of fiber walls and all associated excavating and grading. Mr. Riley.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Ryder with DSS Design. I'm representing Donald and Nancy Colleran. Also here tonight is the general contractor, Leo Frito, if you need to have with him.
Jeff, just before you start, I'm sorry to bother you, but can you just let me know what your plan, is it your plan revision still July 25th?
Yeah, I think there's one there.
Yeah, is there, okay, so you didn't submit a new plan, you just submitted that narrative, correct?
There's a narrative.
Yep, okay, that's all I needed to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go over this real quick because it's been several weeks. The project is to remove a wooden bulkhead all along the shoreline here, the upper part of the beach. Oh, I'm going to back up just a second. We do have land under the ocean, coastal beach, coastal bank, and flood zone. So this is a resource area. So I was back here a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. We talked about the scope of work. And it was the 100 feet or so of removal of a bulkhead and replacing it with stone riprap. So the toe stone and the bulkhead are at the same place. And that's shown in section 8A right here. So we have a neighboring stone riprap, and we want to transition our new riprap into that existing riprap. And then when we get to the stairway, where there's no more bulkhead, then we would like to look at section BB. We have a soft engineering solution. I did look at the plans here for this project. It leaves the lot line without a good closure on the project, in my opinion. So I think by coming off here and wrapping around and tying into the stonework, and then carrying down here and then tying into this stonework, we've done a good job, I believe, of doing it that way. The last detail is just for planting, and that'll come along here after the excavation makes a mess of the place. I don't mean to really laugh on that, but you know how it looks after an excavator goes back and forth. But that will be tidied up. So some of the questions last time was whether or not we had a grandfathered structure. And so what I produced here in this small report was some excerpts from the town of Falmouth Wetland Regs, and then again that same section of coastal bank under the state regulations, under coastal bank under 10.30. And basically it says that you can't build new construction unless you had a structure here. And in the case of the town regulations, 1989 is the year to have a structure that would grandfather the project. And under the state, it's 1978, the same. And then I go on and I talk about the integrity of this project. So there's some photographs. They're all aerial photographs except for the first couple. And we show in 2018, you can see the wall, and there's a black line that represents the shadowing, so you can see that there is a wall there then, of course, that's like 2018. Also in 2018, we showed that wall, same wall, with a survey instrument. That was the day it was surveyed. You can see the wall start to lean towards the ocean, so it's time for that to be replaced. And that's a creosote wall, by the way, so we're gonna get rid of that. You have a 1978 aerial. It's more like a flyby, but you can see it here where locus is. We have a 1975 photograph. It's also where we get the 1975 town topo from. You can see this linear feature, again, where the locus is pointing. 1968, again, you see the squareness of the wall, linear feature again. In my opinion, that's definitely some kind of structure. Again, that's 1968, we got 1960. Again, the last photograph, and it shows sort of a squared off linear feature again. In my opinion, that's the wall back in 1960. In 1950, you can see the house and the wall again. That linear feature again shows up, indicating there's something there. It looks man-made to me. So that's all I can find, and I think that's all that's out there. So that's about it. Again, I can go over the details of the project if you like. One thing I do want to point out that the mean high water line is down well away from the structure, so we're not going to be getting a license for this. We did file with the Army Corps of Engineers. That's about it. I'll take your questions.
You want another forum?
Yeah.
It's all of you guys again, not me,
Feel left out.
not at all. You must have got home early that night.
Jen?
I mean, it's good, the board's gonna have to deliberate this. They originally came in with what did your original concept was a sheer wall, correct?
Oh, no, it was on the riprap, but it was 6 feet.
Oh, yeah, it was 6 feet, sorry, it was 6 feet, right. And then I asked you just to replace the wall.
Right, so
And then you didn't wanna
Jennifer
do that.
called me in and we did a
Yeah, so your
deliberation.
toe stones where the existing wall is, you're gonna lay the wall back into the property. And then take all the mitigation that's right there and move it landward. So the same amount of mitigation is there now, that's gonna be there.
Yes.
Correct, yeah, okay.
Well, plus some.
Yeah, so I mean, the board's gonna have to decide how they feel about the wall. I'm gonna tell you how I feel about your little core fiber roll in the dune, and we said it at the last hearing, I'm not a big fan of that. I feel that that is armoring, that thing's freaking me out. Armoring a coastal dune, and I just can't support that. I can support additional sand in that area, Jeff, with plantings, but I can't support putting a core fiber roll underneath that dune. I'm sorry. Yeah, that dune has to have the ability to migrate either seaward or landward, so, okay.
Well, I believe it will allow the sand, there's plenty of sand on top of it. And,
Well, the board can decide,
and
this the
these
staff is really uncomfortable and doesn't want to set a precedent with kind of
Well, I understand. I just would
securing
like
a
to,
dune.
you know, the fiber rolls are to just prolong this a bit. They do get battered, believe me, they don't stay, you know, in a big storm, but they are helpful on the, you know, significant storms, but not hurricanes.
I understand that, but again, even in a significant storm, I don't want that to cause any additional impact to that dune
I understand.
by being ripped apart and everything. So I'm just telling you that, you don't have to, you know. I understand the point, the board can deliberate. I'm not even saying anything about your wall.
Steve? No, I just want to follow up on Jennifer's comments on clarification. Beyond the path now, there's a sand area, and they're proposing to raise that by underlayment of fiber rolls covered by sand,
Yeah,
as opposed to
just sand,
just sand.
just sand and plantings.
And from the commission staff point of view, just sand and planting would be far superior.
Yes, I
Okay.
think it would. I just don't want to get into
sorry to-
a habit or a precedent of allowing core fiber rolls around dunes to secure them. I mean, dunes are wind-blown sand and sediment, mounds, ridges, hills of wind-blown sand and sediment. Quite frankly, I'm not even sure if the state would allow something like this. Have you ever proposed this in a dune area before, Jeff?
Well, on a coastal bank, yes.
On a coastal dune. I can honestly say that I've never seen it, so if you proposed it for this type of application
Well,
before.
I have seen it on Great Pond, and I can't give you the address. But,
Great Pond. Our Great Pond.
yes. I
Are
don't
you
know.
talking about the big fiber array on,
There was a fiber roll project there.
off of Great Bay Road?
I think so.
Hmm?
I believe it, I don't know the name of the road offhand.
Okay. Alright, is it on the east or west side of the Great Pond?
It's on the east side.
East side?
side.
Hmm?
West side.
That fiber array, I'm thinking it's on the west side, so I'd be interested to know where that is. Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, and if I could follow up on that.
Sure.
And does the abutter being a dune, the abutting home, having an unarmored frontage, does that affect
What was that again, see that?
the abutter that's
Correct,
next to the fiber rules?
Yep.
They have an unarmored
yes,
front yard.
yeah.
And just sand and grass seems to match the flow into that property.
Mhm.
Okay, great. I'm good now, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Education.
No question.
Kevin?
I guess I'm lost here. Are you proposing still to put in riprap across?
Correct,
Mhm.
Yes.
the revetment.
In lieu of the creosote
Because what?
bulkhead wall.
There was the wooden wall,
Yes, there's a wooden wall. It's in that.
you want to replace it with another wooden wall?
No, we
I
must
know what
replace
it
it
was.
with, yeah,
So we have to accept that that wooden wall is a,
coastal engineering structure.
Can I come to the bench and show you something?
I don't know, I don't read it that way at all. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, the photograph of 2018 with the survey equipment on it shows a riprap wall just to the south. I think that's south. For the life of me, I looked for a riprap wall prior to that house being rebuilt, and there's no wall that size. So that wall got enlarged. I'm not looking for an enlargement, just a swap of material.
Kevin, anything else?
Jeff, is the new wall higher than the existing wall?
It's elevation 9 on top and 5 at the bottom. So it's about 4 feet, but my plan says 5 plus or minus, but it's really closer to 4.
So the answer is plus or minus yes.
Yes.
Okay. This is a tough one, Jeff.
You said that?
Yeah.
I'm not set through.
Courtney?
Following up on your comments, you showed us a bunch of aerial photographs, and they're aerial photographs. They indicate something was there, but they don't really indicate what. We don't have a height. We don't know whether those is snow fencing or a wall. In other words, so I'm personally, I'm not comfortable with this because what you're proposing is far more extensive than whatever's been there in the past. And I understand the concept is, well, you can't armor something if it didn't exist before, was it 1978 or 89 or whatever it is.
78 and 89.
But, you know, you showed us some photographs, but they don't really tell me anyway, what those photographs represent, other than the line from 1,000 feet in the air. So, so I have a little bit of a heartthrob about this. Now, I'm only one person on the commission, so, you know, the majority of the commission decides that what you're proposing is a reasonable upgrade, then so be it. But right now, I'm rather skeptical.
All right. Well, I did speak to the general contractor and willing to remove the in section B, the fiber rolls that still have a sand repair, sand and beach grass.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not with the soft solution you've got at the right-hand side, or as I'm looking at it, or what is that, the east side? I'm looking at the riprap. To me, that's a substantial different than and I'm not sure whether what's there is a wall, or fence, or what it is, you see, in other words. And so, and the photographs that you show going back to 1950 don't indicate anything other than there's a shadow on the map. Well, what the hell does that mean? You see, so that's the issue I have. And, you know, that's me. And if the rest of the commission is convinced by your thing, then I guess you'll get the okay.
Well, you know,
That's-
this commission did ask me to, excuse me, you know, to provide some photographs. I thought I did.
No, I mean, I understand, you've provided photographs.
In 1968,
But
that wall is like.
that doesn't tell me
glaring.
how high, what it was doing, it's just a line on a map.
I don't know, but then.
Could have been a snow fence.
There is a picture, it's not a snow fence at all, it's a wall with beams and boards, and it's creosote, which tells you the year.
Was that retaining land behind it, or was it just a freestanding fence? I mean, there's a difference. If it's just a freestanding fence, it's not retaining anything, therefore, then it doesn't fit the criteria of a pre-1989 structure, in my mind. So, in other words, that's the problem I have with those photographs. They're not, it doesn't sell me. When is that picture taken?
This is 2018.
2018, I
Shows-
don't care about
Well,
2018.
you should,
I want to
but
see
this
something
shows-
like that
this shows
from
the creosote wall.
1975.
This shows a creosote wall,
It goes
A what?
backwards.
a creosote wooden wall.
Okay, great. When was that put in?
I picture 1950.
It's the one, 1975.
Yeah, but does that, I'm looking at the 1978 area, and I can't tell whether that's retaining stuff behind it, or that's just a freestanding fence. Now, again, I'm not trying to be, I won't get into the Anglo-Saxonisms. I'm not trying to be an issue for you. But I am not, I'm having my, I'm just reflecting my own misgivings about this and saying, what you've showed me in terms of evidence, photographic evidence, doesn't convince me. It may convince the rest of the board, fair enough, you know? I'm just one person.
Well, just,
So I'm just saying what my concerns are, that's all.
if you look at that 2018 photograph I'm referring to, it has a survey instrument on it.
You know,
In the background,
2018 doesn't tell me.
in the background of
There's a
that,
picture taken in 2018.
in the background of that photograph is a riprap wall that this commission permitted, and it's twice what I'm asking for, at least. And there was no wall in that location of that size.
I mean, do you have an Army Corps of Engineers approval for
I
something
told you that I
exists?
permitted.
Huh?
I told you I filed it. I haven't heard yet.
Anything else?
I'm done.
Okay. Kevin?
Well, a couple of things. I can't get over this A, okay? If you go into either 2000, 2005, whatever you want, okay? The coastal engineering structure of a modification thereto shall be designed and constructed so as to minimize, using best available measures, adverse effects on adjacent or nearby coastal beaches due to changes in wave action. Okay? What you've got there now, that wooden wall that's maybe say 4 feet high, I don't think it's that high, but maybe 4 feet high.
It's close to
That,
5
wait a
feet.
minute now,
Yeah.
and you're gonna replace it. Okay, you're gonna replace it, I apologize. You're gonna replace it with a stone revetment, which, from everything that we've been told, has adverse effects on downdrift property. And the next door neighbor has a soft solution. So I would maintain that he is not going to be the beneficiary, but will in fact be harmed by your putting in this hard solution. You know,
Remember-
I'm not an oceanography
It was a
expert,
transition,
so
so this was to take the brunt of anything coming in that direction. And plus, it's an angled wall, not a vertical wall, it would be less water
Okay.
and wash.
Just a couple of small points. In your proposed replacement, it looks as though the amount of plantings that are going to be proposed are considerably less than what is existing in back of the wooden wall right now. And perhaps those plantings are part of the reasons why that wooden wall is still there.
We can bolster that with more plantings if you'd like. That'd be fine.
Anything else?
I'm sorry.
Any more comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
The 2018 photograph of the seawalls during the survey, this, and then doesn't show any, oh, it does, I guess, armoring of the property next door. It's just a very,
Right here.
it's a substantial pitch, the riprap wall next to it, or is that same?
That's a revetment next to it, and that revetment existed, because I can tell you right now, this board would never have allowed the revetment of an eroding coastal bank. So I don't know when the original wall was built, Jeff, on 5 Foster Road, but this board didn't allow a coastal bank to be armored. Unless I was
How
on
come it's
that
back
day.
here and it's doomed there?
No, I know. No, I'm talking about 5 Fosters, one next to it. So, but there is a dune on the other side. So you're talking about,
Westerly.
yeah, oh, Wester. Yeah, Westerly, there was, yeah, that's a revetment.
Okay.
But it was a pre-existing
It
revetment.
says existing stone riprap wall.
Yeah.
Right,
it
I
was
saw that on your
pre-existing.
drawing, but when I look at the picture, it looks like it's at a,
Yeah. It's
45
very,
degree
yeah, it's
grade or
very
something.
sloped, gently sloping.
It's a 2-to-1 pitch. It's
Excuse me?
just
Not as
odd
obvious.
to me.
Not as obvious.
Yeah.
Excuse me for that, yes. But, and the toe seems to be approximately in line with the other wall.
Mm.
All right, that's it. I was just, the pictures were matching up.
All right, so I need a motion or
I'll make a motion to close.
motion to
Second.
close. We have a motion and a second. Any more comments from the board or any comments from the public?
You may want to continue if it's possible.
Right?
We can address the concerns that they've raised. I thought there was more photographic evidence. I'm sure there is some. I'm sure the
Mr.
family
Chairman,
has some.
to the mic.
Yeah, actually, you gotta use the microphone for the recording.
Leo, you have to go up to the microphone. I'm not even sure if it works.
I am.
It doesn't work, Leo. So just stand at the podium and look like you're talking to the microphone.
Okay. Leo Perito, I represent, I'm the contractor for the owner. So I know there is some other photographic evidence. There's plenty that show that it's a wall that was built in place to retain the land. There was another photo that I thought we had with us tonight that showed it from 1975, that it was clear to see that it was there and it was in place. I've lived in the neighborhood for 27 years. I've seen the wall. I've been around it for years. I was around when the wall next to it went in. The wall was there. It was used to retain the earth behind it. There's plantings up there, and we plan to replace them all, if not more. As far as the soft engineering goes, we thought it would be beneficial to hold that dune in place. If that's not the case and the board doesn't feel that way, then we can take that out as well. They need to protect their property. The wall that's there now is failing. Just feel that it's a permittable project.
Why don't they just want to replace what they have now, Leo?
It's counterproductive. It's going to do it again. There's wave action, there's things going on, and the wall's caving in, it erodes from below. Replacing with wood what's there now is just prolonging it. It's going to be replaced again and again, and you have to keep going in, and it's intrusive, and
Okay.
why would you want to keep
Okay.
going on and on?
Okay. Thank you.
Continue or go? Would it be beneficial to continue until we can provide you with better photographic evidence?
You said you have a 1975 photograph?
Yeah, I thought that was
We
here.
haven't-
Was that submitted?
It's actually 1978. It's the
That's
one
all
that you brought
78.
in.
Is it in our little packet?
Yeah, it's the one that, it's summer of 78.
All right, hang on. I lost my little.
I actually have the original to that photo that shows it much enlarged. And it's very clear to see.
Did you take it, or did you give it back? Oh, there it is, I got it.
Yeah, but it's there.
We have it?
Yes, it's the 1978 summer, it's kind of,
78, the one that says that locust with the arrow.
it's kind of yellowed out.
And it says Davisville,
Holding it
Cape
up.
Cod, summer of 78. Yeah, we have that one.
Yeah, I'm not,
Right
unfortunately,
in that corner, there's
the
a,
quality of that picture isn't,
I do have the original.
yeah, I mean,
That is much better.
you know, I just want to make sure that I just want to be comfortable that we have evidence that it was doing what it was, and like, you know, and if you've got pictures that show the thing, not an aerial 1,000 feet in the air that just shows a line on a map, but you've got some actual pictures of the wall retaining things in 1968 or whenever, that's all we need.
Sure. With the age of the wall now, I mean, you can tell by.
No,
looking at it.
I understand, but if you take a picture in 2018, that doesn't tell us anything other than what we're looking at in 2018. It doesn't tell us that that wall was there in 1978, or 89, or 85, or 1950, or whatever. So we need to see a picture that shows the wall with its wall
Okay.
function.
The applicant
Retaining
submitted
land
pictures
from that period, that's all.
to back up his application. It's up to you if you're gonna accept that as,
I mean,
but
if you
he's
think
just
you
giving
can-
you what you're asking for.
Yep.
Now it's a matter of do you accept it?
Now, yeah, whether or not that rises to a continuance, or whether you have, you know, we're gonna deliberate on this next week, most likely. So, you know, if
The
we have.
continuance is gonna give you the opportunity, if you have more pictures, if you felt it would be to your benefit. That's all I'm saying.
Mr.
I'm not
Taylor
suggesting
does
one way or
have
the other.
more evidence, I believe. I'm not positive, but.
We'll dig it up.
I think I did what you asked. I mean, it's very tough to come up with a photograph with, you know, little Joey in the background, you know, dated. That's just, they're not there, you know? But what was there is, you know, half a dozen photographs. They're quite old, you know, and,
No, they're
Understand
aerials,
that.
but that's all.
You have two choices. We can close the hearing or we can continue it. So
Continue.
our next available continuance date, if you can come up with the photos within, and you can get them to me by next week, Leo, Jeff, you
yes.
can have the 26th. I mean, the 26th is wide open. We have 4 RDAs and
So that's
one
two weeks,
continuance and 1
2 weeks.
amended.
Yeah,
If you can get the information to us, additional photographic information, if you feel it's going to help your case and address Courtney's questions, which I'm not sure it will, then you can have the 26th. If you can get us the information by the 19th, or we can go later, or you can close it and deliver.
So the 26th, is that good for you?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll take the 26th.
26th, okay, that's the quickest I can get.
And I think we'll modify
The
section
plan.
BB.
You can get that plan to me by next Wednesday, Jeff?
I hope so.
You're gonna have to, Jeff.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
So we need withdrawal.
I'll withdraw my motion. If I was
My second.
Motion,
Google Earth.
we'll continue.
I'll move that we continue this to the, what's the date?
26th.
September 26th at the request of the applicant. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for continuance till the 26th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Continue till the 26th.
Okay, thank you.
I make a motion to adjourn.
And not so fast. I just would like to remind everybody, even though Kevin does not want me to, that you have a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, yourselves, the Water Quality Committee, and the Coastal Resiliency Action Committee, 7 o'clock next Monday in the Herman Room of the library. So, who will be attending?
Pretty sure.
Do I have to wear a suit?
No, you do not have to wear a suit, Mr. O'Brien. Steve's the only one wearing it. Thank you, Peter, Jamie, you have to, you're on 2 boards. Mary, Courtney, and
I'm gonna
Kevin.
try. I will
Okay,
try.
that's fine. And Mary just wanted me to confirm that she would have a quorum.
Do we have an
Right.
agenda? or-
This is at
We'll be
7.
issuing the agenda tomorrow. They're finalizing the agenda. It's been going back
Well,
and
if I
forth.
don't get it by Thursday, it's 4.
You'll get it by Thursday at 4.
You agreed before you did about the lack of agenda.
Crack yourself up, Steve.
All right.
This is
Now I
my
make a
third
motion.
meeting today. I'm
What?
getting
You don't have to do that.
I know.
I made a motion to adjourn. Somebody
Yes.
second.
Second.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good